Good afternoon, Sean here, Mountains Garage. Yesterday morning, I bolted the ZZ383 in the Nova clip, the spare one, so I can test run it. And it went pretty well. I actually took a page out of the old NASCAR videos that I watch every now and then where they could change the engine during the race and the headers are already bolted on the engine. I took it right off the stand, headers and all, and was easily able to slip it into the subframe because, let's face it, there's no car in the way, and in this case the steering box is still off. It's funny watching it lower into place. You're almost touching the motor mounts, and I'm thinking there's no way these headers are going to fit because they're listed on eBay with no application. The only thing a third-gen Nova really has going for it is it's the same clip as a first-gen Camaro. We all know how popular those are. So the chances of this set of headers just by looks not fitting an early Camaro, because the whole world fits an early Camaro, well, there's a bonus. They fit a third-gen Nova as well. So a few nights ago, I was going through my mental checklist of things I needed to start it, and I didn't have a good thermostat housing. I prefer raw aluminum. I'm not a fan of the junk chrome stuff, and here's why. I just spent 20 minutes because in a weak moment, instead of just sandblasting this one into aluminum finish like I wanted, which I probably still will when this thing leaks, but I didn't have a thermostat, and for the price of a thermostat locally, I can pretty much get the chrome water neck, bolts, and thermostat. So like I say, in a weak moment, I did that. Well, there's no way to get this O-ring to lay perfectly straight. I guess it'll squish down. I believe the groove isn't cut correctly. And then, to add to the madness, not that it matters, but why would you want the bolts to stick out the same length? This one's longer, but whatever. I'm going to bolt it on. It's just a test run anyway, so when it leaks, I'll fix up the other one. Hey, at least I got a thermostat that should work. If you watched a few of my videos, you know I get pretty excited when I buy an American-made part that's competitively priced and really worth paying extra for if you had to. Unfortunately, like all the parts from all the local auto supply places, is just this stuff thrown in a box. They don't make it. They source it the same place everybody else does. There are still companies out there I could probably find an American-made thermostat if it really mattered. 2 years ago, I was fixing up a Nova for a guy. This story is going to cover a couple things. He wanted the best of the best. So I bought a set of ceramic-coated big block headers from probably the most famous header company that also sounds like a prostitute, if you get my drift. I had the engine all painted beautiful, the engine base painted, and in a Nova, the steering box side is really difficult, the driver's side. So I had the header still wrapped in bubble wrap. I lowered the engine in. Looks like everything's going to fit. I'm not going to scratch anything up. And the header won't bolt to the head. They never cut out for the head bolts. It had stock head bolts. There was nothing special about it. And a little looking around at the box, these were almost $700 for just a ceramic coated header, made in China. So you might as well pay $100 for a set of stainless eBay headers than to pay $600 for just a ceramic coated steel header that doesn't fit. Now you saw I had to modify these stainless ones. I had to modify those other ones a lot more. I mean, we're talking some pretty big scallops to clear the the head bolts. And up until that point, I guess being spoiled, I've been doing this for a long time, bolted on a lot of parts, bought a lot of parts. I never actually tried the header on the engine. Getting it to fit the chassis is one thing. Never thought I'd have a problem bolting on the engine. Physically bolting onto the engine. Well, this one I did. Disappointment set in. I've looked at things a lot different. I looked at things different anyway, but I look at aftermarket parts is where I can get the best deal and its application. Behind the 383 is going to be a 4-speed, so I clearly need a flywheel. I have a couple clutches. I'll put a good old-fashioned Lakewood Bellhausen over it. So the 383 is externally balanced. I have the factory balancer already, so I needed a flywheel. I was able to buy, and I'm not a fan of them, but they claim they're trying a Speedmaster SFI rated, came with the sticker and everything, the correct external balance, one-piece rear main seal flywheel for $108 delivered. I mean, the next step in another name brand flywheel is about $380. So it's getting a Speedmaster flywheel. I'm putting the whole thing inside a scatter shield. So unless when I engage my eBay $60 gear reduction starter against my Australian, wherever it's from, I'd be happy if it's from Australia, Speedmaster flywheel. If it sounds like a chainsaw on a rock, well, you're going to witness it too, because I haven't tried it yet. I could have gone right to GM Performance to get a flywheel. That's where I got the part number. But GM Performance parts are all aftermarket, and for instance, the head bolts that I showed you are Elgin. Elgin's made in China. All the GM Performance chrome parts that they sell is Proform. Proform, made in China. It's a big circle. It's a crapshoot out there. When I said I took the engine off the engine stand and set it in the car, I have to mention the poor design. This is a pretty decent engine stand. I got it with the 421 that was in the 71 Nova. When I went back to buy the engine, this was bolted to it, and I paid whatever for it. It was brand new at the time. It does fold up. I'll give it that. But the spread on the legs interfere with the spread on the legs of the engine crane. What a pain. You cannot get over the engine to grab it. This style rolls right in between. I'll think twice before I use this one again. It's not a bad stand, but I didn't like, even with the small block on it, how weak this appears to be. I had visions of that weld breaking and the whole thing crashing to the ground. But it's sitting in there. It seems strange to put a manual flywheel inside a Power Glide, but it clears. That was a concern, but no problem there. Bolted on the rear. Plenty of room on the headers. I think my clutch linkage and everything should fit no problem, but I'm going to try it right here on the subframe. So I was pretty happy with that. I made up some extra long battery cables. The orange wire is just a temporary for the starter. I'm going to hook my starter button to it like that. So that's just temporary, but the battery cables will probably stay. I'll just crimp on the correct ends. I cannot stand these, but they're good for testing. That's actually off a Dodge Cummins positive terminal. It's amazing you go to a car show and look at the battery connections on a lot of vehicles. It costs like $6 to do it right. So plenty of clearance over here. I'm falling down. One thing, when I actually make this, I don't think I'll put casters on the back. I'll probably put just stationary bolts because the whole thing wants to roll. I had to set it on some 2x6s or 8s to get enough clearance for the engine crane. But either way, she's in there ready to run. I have to find my radiator, the radiator support. I'm going to do that, and I'll get back with you. I forgot to mention I fixed the wiring for the distributor, but I have no power going to it yet. I'll also take that off. The oil pressure gauge is connected. I've found enough stuff to bolt the radiator support in. There's no mount, so the hoses don't fit that great. The guy that had the 71 Nova had bought new GM hoses, didn't buy the original clamps, but he had a plan, I guess. And I've got the fuel line stuck in a jug, so I'm going to roll it over to get oil pressure, and in hopes it'll prime the fuel at the same time. I just came in from outside from mixing 3 gallons of 50-50 because I'm old school. Concentrate is $1 more than 50/50 per gallon. You do the math. So it's got coolant in it. Let's connect the battery. See if we can get some oil pressure. No sparks flying yet. That's always a good sign. Make sure it's in park. Kidding. All right, let's roll her over. Let's see what that starter and flywheel combo sounds like. All right, we have fuel. Excuse me, we have fuel pressure. We have oil pressure. Let me go get a jumper wire and I will put some spark to it. All right, so the plan is, little sprockets there. The ignition's hooked up. If it starts, I'll let it run for a second and then shut it off, check things over, and open the door so I can run it some more. Got fuel. See if I can do this one-handed. I got the starter button and the phone in one hand. Let's see what happens. Here we go. Well, it made noise. That doesn't sound too bad. One pop, but I probably put a lot of fuel in it. Let me check it over, open the door, and see if I can warm it up. As usual with all the jumper wires and diagnostic stuff, it gets a little snarly. I went ahead and put 12 volts to the alternator to try to determine whether it worked. The jury's not in yet. I set the time. I had to stop and actually mark the timing mark because I couldn't see it very well, but it was only off a couple degrees. I set it at 10 without it running. You got to figure the chain stretches and everything, so it was at about 8-ish. So I got it set at 10 and it goes to about 34. I think 32 was ideal for Chevrolet, but this distributor currently has that much advance built into it. So let's start her up one more time. It sounds pretty good. It's loud with no mufflers on it, of course. So let's put the spark to it one more time. And we're at 12.1. Again, see if I can do this. Sorry about the view for a second. Should start on its own. Let's try it. So the voltage does increase with the alternator hooked up. It's only 40 amp, and the battery, I don't know what condition it was in when I started because I didn't check it with the voltmeter. It should be 12.6 to 12.7. So I'll give it a good charge, but I think it'll be okay if it starts off 100%. Again, the alternator is on the small side, so is my wire. All in all, I think it's going to live. A week ago, I remembered with winter coming, I needed to go fill my diesel fuel cans. I got some 5-gallon jugs. And I thought to throw in my gasoline jug and fill it up with 93 octane. So at least it doesn't smell that bad. I mean, it's not good for you, but that's why I'm outside getting some fresh air. I spent a lot of time at the local marina. And low compression boats with through hull exhaust sound awful. They got that wubba wubba sound. If you put a muffler on it, it would sound better. I'm spoiled by like being at the drags, listening to a high compression engine, 13 to 1 and up, 12 to 1 and up even. With a lot of overlap in the camshaft, it's got a good sound. This motor should sound good with mufflers on it. It's somewhere in between the wobble wobble and the really good. Again, the camshaft's not that big. I think it's going to sound good. The exhaust system on the 71 sounded pretty good, even with the 307 that was in it. I got video of it running. It wasn't that bad. So this should sound pretty good. So I'm going to call it a success. Looking back, I probably should have looked at the bearings, but again, the engine looked perfect. The short block. I don't know why they took it out. It did look like it ran really rich. They said it had an EFI with a problem. So, I'm not into it for huge money. I say that, so I've been thinking about this. Everybody always wants to talk money. All said and done, this thing bolted in the car, I'm going to have like $2 grand into it. Everything. Which is pretty good. I'm figuring everything. Seems like a pretty good deal for a ZZ383. It's an expensive engine. However, take that same money, you can go buy a nice 6-liter and a Holley Terminator, and probably a turbo if you wanted to, and probably outrun it. Definitely outrun it by a couple seconds. But that's not what this one's all about. I haven't ever had a decent small block, and I'm going to build 2 more. I'll have to try them all out. I'm going to include at the end of this video, before I bolted the single plane intake on, I set the dual quad intake on it that's going on the 377, and the fin valve covers, and I actually have a set of stainless Lakester headers. You'll see them when I do my cheap stainless eBay header video, because I got too many sets. Might as well make a video. So anyway, this wraps up the ZZ383. The next time you see it, it'll be sitting in the Nova, or I'll be putting it in the Nova. But for right now, we're all done talking about it. As always, thanks for watching. Like and subscribe. It's kind of fun. I like to talk about the channel itself. I mean, getting the first 100 subscribers took forever. Now I pick up 25 or so a week. And we're at like 740-ish. We're going to make 1,000, I think, at my 1-year mark, which was my goal. And maybe someday it'll take off. Maybe if I didn't complain enough about more, maybe if I complain more about China stuff or less. Or actually that thermostat housing was from Taiwan. So you can't blame China for that one. But again, I call them as I see them. If I ever become a world-renowned YouTubeologist and I'm a product spokesman, I can guarantee you right now, go back to this video, that I will believe in the product before I endorse it. Because, well, I don't know. How many millions would it take for me to say I like something when I didn't? We're all weak somewhere. Thanks for watching. Talk to you later. Bye.